this is the working title of a paper that Benjamin McLean and I are currently working on. This is me, I'm just functioning as a free author, basically, and Benjamin McLean is obviously, well, you know him. So yeah, so the title is Epicenter of Controversy, Talk Scandals and the Alternative für Deutschland, which, if you don't know, is main populist radical right party in Germany and is the biggest opposition party in our federal parliament currently. So talking about populist radical rights, we were trying to find out, the scene was that populist radical right are known to appropriate media logic by strategically provoking scandals that are mediatized through profit-oriented news outlets. And scandalization and other discursive techniques that evolved during those scandals are used to mitigate responsibility, and they function as propaganda tools because they draw the media's attention and thus kind of a very large audience, while at the same time normalizing racist and otherwise extremist discourse. So we not only have racist discourse, but also very much like historic revisionist discourse, etc., denying the Holocaust, etc. And talking about the German case, the AfD is very much known to, and also been research into this field of using discursive strategies of scandalization and also calculated ambivalence to be very effective. So sorry. While the AfD was a few years ago not that radical right, they didn't start out as a populist radical right party. They radicalized over the last years and basically the last decade kind of. And this is also so their scandalization techniques are contributing to this radicalization and also to their visibility very much. Okay, so our research is basically set in, our global aim was basically to understand how right-wing populists, specifically the AfD, activate media in their favor and capture attention and also influence public debate by using controversies and scandals. And our research question was, which discursive strategies do they use when they respond to talk scandals, and which were initiated by one of their peers or themselves, and how do these responses impact how the scandal evolves? And we built on existing communication studies and discourse studies that worked on talk scandals and radical right provocations, which you can see here. This was the most contributing research going into our analysis. Yeah, talking about the analysis. So we conducted a detailed discourse historical analysis, and we analyzed 3 different talk scandals that were initiated by AfD-politicians through speeches during the first half of 2018. Just to explain, 2018 because we had an election in 2017, federal elections, and they started to, they formed a government in 2018. And at that point, the AfD became the biggest opposition party. So they really had, they were starting to kind of start to present themselves in federal parliament going into that year. Right, okay, how did we select those 3 speeches? We looked at large news websites that featured news stories in which the AfD were picked up and accused of norm transgressions or racist, they usually don't say racist, but like discriminatory words or sentences, etc. And these news websites, they followed up continued to report on this because other affiliates of the party or the scandal makers themselves responded to what was happening. And they picked this up and quoted them. And this is also where we found the responses and the reactions. So we just had to look at those news websites and kind of follow up what was going on. Okay, so the 3 talk scandals we delineated were this guy, he's now not party not part of the party anymore, but he was chairman in Sachsen-Anhalt, which is a very important state for the AfD. Okay, so he held a speech during a political rally. This is Alice Weidel. She still is fraction leader in the Bundestag, and with this speech in May 2018, she opened the general debate as the biggest opposition party. And this is Alexander Garland, very important figure of the AfD to this day, kind of. And in June 2018, he held a speech at another rally from the youth organization. So these are the three speeches that we have. And our analysis so the main findings, this is the most important one. So each of those cases, each speech and each scandal that evolved afterwards revolved around one norm transgression, usually just one sentence and one term that really became the focal point of the scandal. And that we labeled the epicenter of controversy. So this is very much important finding that we had. And this is connected to calculated ambivalence, and that intention can be denied afterwards when you have a single term or a sentence being ambiguously constructed and the meaning is not 100% clear. We affirmed the concept of two-level ambivalence, meaning you have ambivalence on an individual level, meaning that you have a person responding submissively and confrontationally to public criticism at the same time. That may include quasi-apologies or blaming certain choice of words rather than content. This is on an individual level. And on a collective level, you have different people. I mean, it's kind of understandably that you have people criticizing what a person said and some people endorsing that person. But they all had in common that they basically focused around certain words and not really delved into the details of the speeches. Especially this two-level ambivalence connected to the other findings that I just explained, lead to the audience being manipulated into perceiving that the person or the other AfD members were apologetic and that they realized what was said, but the actual norm transgression is being softened or endorsed because it's not really clear to what they respond to or to whether they actually disagree or do they disagree to the content of the speech or just like to a word. It was very unclear. So apologetic behavior is being perceived, but it's not really clear. And it also again asserts the debate around the epicenter of controversy, and the ambiguity that I explained before is not resolved. It could have been by referring to the remaining speech. It usually wasn't. So it's really just again about the epicenter of controversy. And just going into those cases real quick, just so you know what kind of was said. So this guy basically talked about Germans of Turkish descent. There's the translation on the bottom of the slide, if you care. And he talked about Kümmelhändler, caraway dealers, Kameltreiber, cameleer, and this is really, really, really racist terms from the 50s, 60s. And later, he and others kind of said that Kümmeltürke was the slur, but André Poggenburg didn't say Kümmeltürke, but Kümmelhändler, so this is like a totally different thing. Yes, and he denied intent and etc. So it was very much just focused on one or two words, and this is where the debate revolved around, which is astonishing when you look at the rest of the speech. That was very much clear. So yeah, this was that case. I'm just going over this really briefly because it's a lot of content. Yeah, Alice Weidel talked about burqas, headscarf girls, etc., etc. And in this case, actually, the reaction by the Bundestag president was also focused on this very sentence, because burqas and headscarves girls were in one line with good-for-nothings. That was why she was criticized. And this is also, of course, what she responded to when she said, okay, I enumerated it in one sentence, but it wasn't meant in that way. yeah, so kind of Bundestag President Schäuble actually set the scene for this epicenter of controversy that evolved afterwards. And yeah, so this is, yeah, she claims that enumeration ending with Taugenichts didn't apply to Kopftuchmädchen and Burkas. Again, the rest of the speech is very telling, but this was what the scandal focused on. And the last one, Alexander Gauland, he actually talked about the Wehrmacht and the NS. And he said that Nazis were just a bird shit. And he said so many other things. But again, the word bird shit really resonated with German public, featured in most reactions, implicitly or explicitly, again, very ambiguous what they were referring to. That wording wasn't good or whatever. And looking at the rest of the speech, we could have known what he meant that he actually endorsed Wehrmacht war crimes. That was rarely done. Some journalists did it, but this was where the epicenter of controversy revolved around. Okay, so yeah, that's the conclusion basically, that these right-wing populist talk scandals really work on this kind of German obsession with style and formats, that racist articulation can be only seen when you use very explicit language. Otherwise, they don't realize that it's racist. And they use this, or in our analysis, we found this is done, or this is achieved by creating an epicenter of controversy that is, again, self-reproducing discussions of ambiguous words or sentences, and the rest of the speech is just being neglected. So in this way, that content is being kind of normalized. So bird shit was not okay, but the rest of the speech was fine, which it really wasn't, but no one looked at it. Yes, and in connection with ambivalence, again, the audience was being manipulated. They think, oh, the AfD apologized, or he was sorry, or, oh yeah, but I mean, they talked about it. They kind of dealt with that criticism when it really wasn't. And again, it's not being dealt with. The person is still head chairman. There are no consequences whatsoever, and the norm-transgression is being softened or endorsed. Yeah, that's basically it. One outlook. So actually, this is like the most important or difficult task. We need to criticize and sanction extremist or racist statements, but at the same time, populist radical right actors cannot benefit from this debate. So I think it's important to kind of look over overt statements as well, and also see racist and other extremist statements and ideology, even if they're not that overt, if it's not really obvious from their form, or look, we still have to kind of investigate what they're saying. Okay, yeah, that's basically it.